here in just a second. Let's dive into the information, the latest on this. And again, this is something that happened on social media that kind of grabbed my attention. I'm following Elgton Jenkins over there. I try to follow mostly just Packers when it comes to social media, especially Instagram. It's become, all of us become kind of a cesspool, to be honest with you. It just seems like more times than not, you scroll and go, don't want to see that. Don't want to look at that. Don't need that in my life, right? But so I tried to follow a bunch of Packer players to kind of keep up with what's on the forefront of their minds. Sometimes they'll signal things that are happening, like, with Romeo Dobbs. You've seen him signal. It was almost like he did a farewell tour, posting pictures of him with teammates and this and that. You could tell how his time in Green Bay has been cherished, but it looks like the market is probably going to push him in a different direction so he can make more money. So here we go. Elgton Jenkins, this is what he put up on the IG story. And I just, like I said, tweeted it out. He had IG'd this out, and you actually can't see it. The image is cut off below, but you see a guy wearing an Elgton Jenkins Green Bay Packers jersey, and it looks like he's in the cheese section, right? So I don't know if he was there locally in Green Bay, if he's where he's spending his offseason. We know he's rehabbing an injury, but he actually put 3 cheese emojis on this picture as well. Like I said, it got cut off. So it's like, is he signaling a return back to Green Bay? Is he saying, hey, look, we're in good standing here? Maybe they've already got a deal in place. It hasn't leaked out. I don't know. I want to know what you guys think in the comments. And I did go ahead and ask a poll question here on YouTube. And the question is, which option best describes your position on Elgton Jenkins? Would you release him, bring him back on a pay cut, or keep him under the current contract? I asked the same exact question over on X, and I'm going to try to keep up with that poll results. Okay, so right now, everybody get your votes in. Right now on YouTube, it's 64. Oh, it's changing. Look at this. 64% say release him. 36% say bring him back on a pay cut. 0% says keep him on the current contract. So I think we would all agree you do not want Elgton Jenkins back at $24.8 million, right? I think that's pretty common knowledge. Now on X, looking very similar, okay? Actually a little bit different. Look at this. Bring back on a pay cut is leading the way on X with 63.2%. Release him 31.6%, and keep him with the current contract actually has 5.3% of the votes. So not a big goose egg there. Now, what does all this mean? What all comes into play? What are the likely scenarios, right? And guys, you need to go check out over at A to Z Sports and also on X. Go follow Wendell Ferreira, okay? He put a little piece up on that. I read that this morning. Great little quick read on kind of all the different scenarios, this and that. I asked AI, hey, what do you see as the top scenarios here? It pretty much said word for word agreeing with Wendell Ferreira. Here are the top options. So here are the 4 scenarios outlined for Elgton Jenkins. Release. This is the most likely scenario. Jenkins' salary jumps to $20 million in 2026, which is considered unrealistic given his recent play in the lower market value for centers. Creed Humphrey, the highest paid at 18, he makes $18 million. Now keep in mind, Tyler Linderbaum's looking to try to stretch that, match it, or at least get in the ballpark. The current market value is showing $17.7 million for Linderbaum. I think they're assuming that he kind of underplayed, Creed Humphrey there, which still hurts. I know, I get it. I know there's a portion of the fan base is like, I can't believe Goody chose Josh Myers over Creed Humphrey. 1 pick before Creed Humphrey went. I get it. I understand the frustration. Hindsight being 2020, I completely agree with you, right? But releasing him will create significant cap space, allowing the team to move forward with Jacob Monk or an extension for Sean Ryan. Pay cut. That's another scenario. Jenkins remains a better pass protector than Sean Ryan and has more experience than Jacob Monk. The Packers could ask him to take a team-friendly deal, similar to previous moves made with players like Aaron Jones in 2023, Preston Smith in 2024. However, if he refuses, a release becomes inevitable. Again, you could go to him and ask for that pay cut. I think as fans, we would all love to see that, right? However, that's going to be up to him. Why would you leave money on the table? Now, here's the thing, too. From Elton's standpoint, he's got to make a realistic analysis, if you will. Okay, yeah. If they want to bring me back, let's say at $18 million, right? Let's say they want to lower that number. Let's just talk base salary. Let's say they want to drop that base salary down to $15 million. So I'm taking a $5 million pay cut, okay? But they want to guarantee $3 million of the remaining salary, so I get a signing bonus right now. Okay, now I've got to weigh out what's the market going to look like for me out there. My contract is already overinflated, right? If I'm Elgton Jenkins, I know that when I hit the market, there's nobody that thinks he's going to get $20 million on the market, right? So now he's got to ask himself, what's it worth? What is it worth for me to hit the market And let's say I do hit the market isn't there, and the market is only at $8 million. And now the Packers say, you know what, we've moved on. Well, you've missed out on that money that they would have potentially guaranteed you and brung you back here in 2026 with the Green Bay Packers. So he got to weigh that out and say, okay, is that new number worth me packing up my family and moving to another city? Maybe moving to another place like LA or New York or somewhere like that, where the taxes are going to be through the roof, and it really cuts into my bottom line as well. All these things are going to come into play, right? So keep him as is an unlikely scenario. The team could decide his veteran presence is worth the $20 million for one final shot in 2026. They might add void years to his contract to spread out the cap hit, though his actual earnings would remain the same. So they could do just not a restructure, but I guess you could call it a simple restructure, tack on voidable years. But all that's doing, guys, is you're still paying $24.8 million for Elgton Jenkins in that scenario. That's why it's obviously listed as unlikely. You're just spreading that out. You're swiping the credit card and saying, hey, let's put that over the next 2 to 3 years, right? I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they should do that. What I would like to see if we're going to bring Elgton back is he's got to take a pay cut, okay? And we're going to guarantee a little bit of money for him to make it worth his while. Another scenario that I don't think it's in the Packers' best interest, because once you cut him and let him hit free agency, maybe he loses interest in coming back. But if you do that, if you cut him, you have got to be prepared for him to say, I'm done talking to Green Bay. I don't want to come back, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing for the Packers to do. I'm just simply saying you've got to be willing to cross that threshold there. I think it's also kind of operating in good faith if you allow Elgton to go out and get a fair offer, right? Go out and grab an offer that you think, okay, this is what it's worth, right? So I don't think that's a bad scenario for either party as well. Now, the least likely scenario, and even Wendell Ferreira talked about this in his article, is a trade. It's difficult to find a trade partner willing to pay $20 million salary for a player coming off a major injury and regression. A trade would only work if Jenkins agreed to a pay cut or a lower average extension with the new team. But if he were willing to do that, the Packers would likely prefer just keep him. So obviously, what it would take to put a trade in place is something that it'd probably make more sense for him just to stay in Green Bay for both parties, right? And when you look at his current contract, I just grabbed that there from Spot Track, so you guys can kind of take a look at it. You see the cap hit at $24.3 million. I've always said 24.4. It's actually 24.3 is what they're showing now. The dead cap attached is $4.8 million. So you're essentially freeing up a little over $19 million if you cut him outright. Now, notice the dates here. $24 million guaranteed at signing bonus. That's already been allocated. You're good to go there. 2024 roster bonus, he gets $5.1 million if he's on the roster March 15th. So there's going to be a decision made before March 15th, obviously, right? That's, when the new league year starts. This is what I was talking about. If they don't do a restructure, if we don't hear about a restructure in the next 7 to 14 days, you're probably inching towards they're just going to cut him outright to save on that 5.1. And then, of course, you're going to save out on the salary there as well throughout the season of $18.5 million if you move on at that point as well. So that's kind of how the contract is laid out at the moment. Let's talk about his production. Again, I'm not saying PFF is everything, guys. If you got a better run blocking, pass blocking metric source website you'd like to use, hey, fire it into the chat. We'll all check it out. That's what we do here at Packer Fan Total Access. We're all fans kind of figuring this thing out together. But when you look at the PFF grades starting in 2019, 69.1, 66.9, 82.1, and that was his best year in 2021. So his best football, according to PFF, was in 2021. Now, 2022, 72.3. Not bad, right? Pretty good grade. Solid grade. Worth the money. 2023, 64.5. Now you're going, okay, probably overpaid, right, at this point. 2024, 65.7. Yeah, we're definitely overpaying for this guy right now. 2025, he drops to a 62.0. You're seeing a steady regression there, right? Slight setback or a slight kick up in 2024, but you're kind of seeing it looks like Elgton's best football is behind him here, right? And then, of course, you look at the injuries. I mean, he lasted, to week 10 essentially, and then he was out for the rest of the year. We'll talk about the injury in a second. Pass blocking efficiency, that's where they weight in sacks, and now you can kind of rank everybody across the league at the center position. When you look at, well, first of all, overall PFF grade, 22nd. Is what Elgton Jenkins ranked, okay? When you look at pass blocking efficiency, 98.0 was the efficiency. You say, man, that sounds good. That's great, right? That's a good efficiency grade. He was 23rd best in the league, okay? Behind people like Cooper Beebe, Corey Levin, Coleman Shelton, Ethan Pochich. You got John Michael Schmitz, sound like a country singer, Luke Fortner, Tanner Bordellini, Luke White, you hear these names like Nuke Weipler, Cade Mays, Jake Andrews, Connor McGovern. He's actually a free agent, if I remember correctly, out of Buffalo. Froholt, Ted Karras. You hear these names and you think, damn, Elton's not as good as them. It's tough. It's a tough look, man. It is, again, the efficiency grade weighted towards sacks allowed and this and that, he only gave up 2 sacks, don't get me wrong, but he also gave up 2 hits, 6 hurries, 10 pressures, right? When you weight everything into consideration here, they're saying, hey, he was the 23rd best center. I don't have a problem having the 23rd best center on our roster. I have a problem paying the 23rd best center $24.8 million. And again, that's the efficiency rating. These are the grades. The grades are suggesting he's 22nd right there in that same ballpark, right? I think we would all agree he's a good pass blocker, and he struggled run blocking this year. Sean Ryan is totally the opposite. Sean Ryan was pretty damn bad at pass blocking, but he was a good run blocker. So you got to kind of pick your poison there. And that's why I think neither of those guys are the answer for the future, which is why I want to see them go after Linderbaum in free agency. And if they don't go after Linderbaum or a McGovern or somebody like that in free agency and don't try to hit a home run, then maybe Jake Slaughter is your pick, right? Maybe there's another center that you like out there. Maybe it's Brian Parker, who's rumored to be going to be kicking into center and guard, right? Maybe he's the center of the future. Maybe you go get Bo Stevens to play guard, and somewhere around the 84th pick if he's still there on the board. And then you allow Sean Ryan to be your starting center, him and Jacob up. I don't know. I just feel like you need to make an improvement there at center. Now let's talk about the injury details, because this is something that's not getting talked about enough, right? This is an aspect of this whole situation here with Elgton Jenkins that's really, really going to play a role in whether or not he returns. Injury details. He basically suffered, the primary injury was a fractured fibula, a lower leg fracture, essentially. The secondary damage, however, he sustained was ligament damage in his lower leg/ankle area. So there's ligament damage and a break there, right? How it happened, obviously it happened there when the quarterback Jordan Love got sacked and rolled up on the back of Jenkins' leg. I think it was against the Eagles, right? Immediate status, he was placed on injured reserve on November 11th, right? Return scenarios. This is probably the most important part, right? Medical experts and reports suggest the following recovery timelines for the type of combined fracture and ligament injury. Keep in mind, guys, everybody heals different. We're always going to say that. 1, 2, it depends on how the rehab process goes. Are there any setbacks? Are we going to hear about those setbacks? Probably not, right? So there's kind of a broad perspective. I'm going to give you a best case scenario and a worst case scenario for the timeline of return for Elgton Jenkins. If the surgery, best case scenario is May/June of 2026. If the surgery and bone healing go perfectly, a typical timeline for a fractured fibula in an NFL athlete is 10 to 16 weeks for the bone itself. In a best-case scenario, Jenkins will be fully cleared for football activities by OTAs May or mandatory minicamp in June, allowing him to have a full ramp-up before the 2026 season begins. That's the good news. Here's the worst-case scenario. Late August, September of 2026, start of the regular season. The worst case involves complications with the ligament damage, which often takes longer to rehabilitate than the bone fracture itself. If the ligament stability is slow to return, Jenkins might start the 2026 season on the physically unable to perform list. This would likely sideline him for the first several weeks of the regular season to ensure his ankle can handle the lateral movement required for an interior lineman. So again, that's the best and worst case scenario. Quick recap. Best case scenario, he's going to be good to go for OTAs. We're good. May and June, you're off and running. Worst case scenario, might not see him until, who knows, week 2, week 4, week 6 of the season if they have complications with the ligament damage. So again, when you take all that into consideration, this isn't a slam dunk, right? It's not a slam dunk at all. This is kind of a tough look. So I'm curious to know what you guys think in the chat. You guys are watching this back later in the comments. Let us know, how do you feel about the Elgton Jenkins options? What would be your choice of those 3 that we laid out? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe so you're in here hanging out with us when we go live in the future. We greatly appreciate everybody tuning in.